Imagine standing on a rugged, windswept coastline 30,000 years ago, during the freezing twilight of the last ice age. You are cold, starving, and exhausted. Before you lies a vast, churning ocean, its violent waves crashing against sharp black rocks. Out in the freezing water, hundreds of feet from the shore, giant fish swim just beneath the surface. They are packed with dense, energy-rich fat that could keep your entire starving tribe alive for weeks. But there is a deadly problem. The water is far too deep to wade into, and the crashing waves will smash any crude wooden raft to pieces in seconds. If you jump in, the cold will paralyze your body in less than 2 minutes. You are standing right next to a goldmine of survival, yet you cannot touch it without dying. Every instinct in your body tells you that the air and the sky belong only to birds, while the land belongs to you. But what if you could break the laws of nature? What if you could throw your line into the sky, hitch a ride on the invisible power of the wind, and drop a deadly trap hundreds of yards into the ocean without ever touching a drop of water? This was not just a clever survival trick. This was the birth of humanity's very first flight technology, an invention so wild, so absurd, and so far ahead of its time that modern science is only now uncovering its true mind-bending origins. Before we launch into this unbelievable journey of ancient human genius, please take a quick second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It really helps us bring these hidden historical thrillers to life for you. To understand how a hairless, land-bound primate conquered the air tens of thousands of years. Before the invention of paper, silk, or modern aerodynamics, we have to strip away everything you think you know about kites. Today, you think of a kite as a colorful plastic toy floating peacefully in a park on a sunny Sunday afternoon. But in the brutal arena of Stone Age survival, nothing was made for fun. Everything was a weapon, a trap, or a shield. For over 100,000 years, early humans were trapped in a continuous arms race against physical space. Our spears could only travel as far as a human arm could throw them. Our hunting nets were heavy and anchored to the muddy shore. We were completely prisoners of gravity. But inside the prehistoric mind, something shifted during the cognitive revolution. Early humans stopped looking at nature as a static wall and started viewing it as a source of raw kinetic energy. They observed leaves catching updrafts over canyon cliffs. They watched spiders releasing silk threads into the mountain breeze to sail across vast valleys. They realized that the wind was not just cold air blowing across their faces. It was an invisible, tireless river of force waiting to be harnessed. The breakthrough did not happen in a high-tech laboratory, but in the dense, damp jungles of Southeast Asia and the rugged Pacific Islands. Archaeologists and ethnobotanists, analyzing ancient hunting tools, discovered a fascinating biological anomaly. Primitive tribes were using a specific plant, species known as the Alocasia macrorrhizos, or the giant elephant earleaf. These leaves were thick, surprisingly lightweight, and naturally coated in a hydrophobic wax that repelled salt water completely. But a large leaf on its own is useless in a storm. The moment a strong gust hits it, the fragile plant tissue shreds into useless ribbons. This is where early human materials science took a brilliant, unexpected leap forward. Our ancestors discovered that by stripping the inner fibers of wild orchid, vines, or braided coconut husks, they could create a flexible frame that mimicked the skeletal structure of a flying creature. They laid these tough, fibrous skeletons across the back of the hydrophobic leaves, binding them with natural tree resins and boiled animal gut. They had created a lightweight, airtight surface capable of generating aerodynamic lift. Now imagine holding this strange, fan-like leaf structure on a rocky cliffside. The wind catches it, tugging violently at your wrists. Your primitive mind feels the upward pull, a sudden sensation of anti-gravity. But how do you turn a floating leaf into a high-precision hunting machine? This is where the sheer psychological brilliance of stone age survival comes into play. Fishing from a rocky cliff in ancient times was a suicide mission. If a massive ocean fish took your bait, the sudden jerk would pull you off the slippery wet rocks and drag you straight into the freezing abyss below. To solve this, prehistoric inventors created a double-line trigger mechanism that functions almost identically to the modern downriggers used on high-end, deep-sea fishing yachts today. Here is how this ancient engineering masterpiece actually worked. The hunter tied a long primary flying line, made of braided plant, sinew to the center of the leaf frame. This main line was designed purely to hold the kite steady against the roaring ocean winds, elevating the flying structure dozens of feet above the breaking waves. Suspended underneath the kite was a secondary, completely separate line made from fine, nearly invisible spiderweb filaments or woven bark thread. At the end of this delicate lower line hung a baited hook, carved from razor-sharp sea snail shells, or a tangled lure made of sticky spider silk. The hunter stood safely high up on the dry cliff edge, releasing the primary line. As the wind caught the hydrophobic leaf, it soared out over the violent waves, carrying the baited lure hundreds of yards away from the shore, right into the calm, deep hunting zones where the giant predatory fish gathered. When a massive fish rose from the deep and swallowed the lure, the heavy downward tug immediately snapped the delicate secondary thread, disconnecting the fish entirely from the flying kite. The full force of the giant struggling sea creature was transferred directly to a wooden hand, reel anchored deeply into the rock face, beside the hunter. The kite remained floating safely up in the sky, while the human on the cliff fought the beast using mechanical leverage. It was an absolute triumph of ancient biomechanics. Without metal, without motors, and without stepping foot into dangerous waters, a single human could harness the power of the sky to harvest hundreds of pounds of high-calorie food from the deep sea. Biomechanical engineers who reconstructed these primitive leaf kites in wind tunnels were stunned by what they found. The crude geometric curvature of the natural elephant ear leaf, when anchored at specific tethering angles, creates an ideal lift-to-drag ratio. It produces an aerodynamic phenomenon known as passive angle of attack correction. When a sudden gust of wind slams into the leaf, the flexible orchid vine framework bends backwards slightly, dumping excess air pressure and preventing the kite from diving into a violent spin. The moment the wind stabilizes, the elastic vine snaps back to its original arch, restoring maximum lift automatically. Stone Age humans had accidentally engineered an auto-stabilizing flight system. Hundreds of centuries before modern aviation scientists calculated the mathematical equations for fluid dynamics. As thousands of years rolled by, this incredible sky-trapping technology spread across ancient migration routes, evolving from a pure survival tool into an instrument of territorial defense and psychological warfare. Imagine being an enemy tribe marching through a dense, foggy valley at dawn 30,000 years ago. You look up through the mist and see giant, ghostly wooden frames, shaped like demonic faces hovering motionless, high above the tree canopy, whistling loudly as the wind passes through hollow bone reeds attached to their tails. To a superstitious ancient mind, this was not a piece of wood and leaves. This was terrifying dark magic. It appeared as if the spirits of the sky were guarding the valley, watching your every single step. Ancient chieftains used these early wind machines to signal distant, allied tribes across vast mountain ranges, dropping glowing embers or smoky resin, bundles from the sky to warn of incoming danger long before anyone ever dreamed of smoke signals or mirrors. Living inside a dark, dangerous Ice Age world was a continuous fight against environmental panic. Humans were physically weaker than almost every apex predator hunting them. We had no sharp claws, no thick fur to protect against the bitter cold, no blinding speed, and no natural armor. But the invention of the first primitive kite proved something profound about the human spirit. It proved that human intelligence is the ultimate evolutionary cheat code. While other species spent millions of years evolving biological wings or specialized fins through slow genetic mutations, humans bypassed biology entirely using abstract reasoning. We looked at a tree leaf, a spider web, and a gust of wind, and merged them together in our minds to create an artificial wing that allowed us to hunt in regions where no land animal had ever hunted before. Stepping out from behind the safe, stone walls of early shelters and daring to command the invisible forces of the atmosphere was the ultimate declaration that Homo sapiens would not merely adapt to nature, we were going to force nature to adapt to us. The simple leaf kite was the direct ancestor of every sail that ever crossed an ocean, every wind turbine generating power today, and every airplane soaring through the clouds at 30,000 feet. It all began with a starving human standing on a freezing cliff, looking up at the sky and deciding that the air was not a barrier, but a bridge to survival. If you found this deep dive into the mind-blowing technology of our Stone Age ancestors exciting, please drop a like on this video right now and hit that subscribe button to join our growing community of curious minds. I want to hear from you down in the comments below. Do you think you could have successfully crafted and flown one of these primitive leaf kites to survive a brutal Ice Age winter? Or would your gear have crashed into the ocean on your very first try? Also, tell me what mystery, ancient survival invention, or forgotten historical topic we should tackle in our next deep dive video. Thank you so much for watching, keep exploring, and stay curious.